seismic shift in the political landscape as former backbencher in the Barbados Labour Party-led government crossed the floor to become not only the leader of the opposition, but also leader of another party. Christchurch South MP Ralph Thorne's transition culminated yesterday with the official announcement that he is now the political leader of the Democratic Labour Party.
It is not usual that you come into a party and you come in at this level, and it was, Steve, I must admit, it was kind of chilling just now to hear you say political leader. I have joined as an ordinary member, but the circumstances have cast me, and I don't say catapulted, the circumstances have cast me into this office.
DLP General Secretary Steve Blackett welcomed Mr. Thorne into the fold.
This is a wonderful opportunity for us as the Democratic Labour Party tonight in welcoming our new political leader, standing with our President, Dr. Ronnie Yearwood, our new political leader, Mr. Ralph. And I'm happy that we are all here assembled in this room to celebrate on this occasion.
Now, all this happened in just over a week. It was on February 9th that the Christchurch South Member of Parliament abandoned the ruling BLP. The King's Council indicated to President the Most Honourable Dame Sandra Mason that he would now sit in opposition to the government.
I came to a point where I had to take the decision that if my philosophical and political views do not accord with those of government in terms of its legislation, in terms of its policy, the relationship becomes untenable.
While Mr. Thorne did not notify Prime Minister Mia Amor-Motley, she was informed by the President. Subsequently, during a branch meeting just 48 hours later in Christchurch East, the Prime Minister sought to reassure members of the party.
All is well, and the continued representation that we offered the people of Christchurch South in 2018 and 2022 as a party will continue unabridged and uninterrupted. It is unusual for a person to change party once, but it happens. It is rare for a person to change a party twice, but it also happens. But it is almost without comparison to change a party 3 times. I can only assume that, therefore, changing parties is easy come, easy go. The truth is that none of us can tell you why Mr. Thorne has left. I'm not sure his branch executive can tell us. I'm not sure the Christchurch South branch can tell us. I know that the chairman cannot tell us. I know that the general secretary cannot tell us. And I know that I, as political leader, cannot tell you, because I have not spoken to him and he has not spoken to me.
Despite this, PM Motley wished Mr. Thorne the very best.
I want to thank him for his service for the people of Christchurch South and the Barbados Labour Party between 2018 and now.
Mr. Thorne was first elected in 2018 during the BLP's historic 30-0 victory, which was repeated in 2022. But these were not his first forays into elective politics. Back in 1994, at just 35 years old, a young Thorne ran as a Democratic Labour Party candidate in St. Michael North against Ronald Topping, losing on that occasion. He would contest that seat yet again in 1999 and lose once more. In 2003, Mr. Thorne switched allegiances and joined the BLP. And by 2015, he would replace the long-standing BLP General Secretary, Dr. Jerome Walcott, as the party's candidate for Christchurch South. During his time as an MP with the current government, he was not given a ministerial portfolio. He did, however, lead the Thorne Commission on Local Governance, while continuing his legal practice, working across the Caribbean. His departure from the BLP has generated mixed views in his constituency.
Ralph Thorne betrayed the BLP. It's not good for Oyster folks.
Everybody have the choice to do what they want to do. That is my man, so whether he cross or in cross, he will always be there for us.
Good riddance. Good riddance.
I think he should resign because right now we want somebody to represent the people in Christchurch South, especially all Saints.
On Monday, February 12th, in a brief ceremony at State House, before President Dame Sandra Mason, the former government backbencher took the oath of office and became Barbados's opposition leader. The following day, he walked up the steps of Parliament and sat for the first time in opposition to the government. Mr. Thorne's move meant changes not just to the lower house, but the Senate as well. Barbados's constitution provides for the leader of opposition to recommend the appointment of 2 members to that chamber. Attorney-at-law Tricia Watson and businessman Ryan Walters were the chosen ones. Both Ms. Watson and Mr. Walters are card-holding members of the Democratic Labour Party. DLP President Ronnie Yearwood, speaking at a branch meeting in St. John, shared that the door is always open for Ralph Thorne.
People have been asking me clearly, is Mr. Thorne coming to the Democratic Labour Party? Will we embrace him? Is he going to, well, I should say coming back. Come home, because he was a member of the Democratic Labour Party. And you know, sometimes people in the barn run, you know where? You know when you left your mother and your father's house, and they put you out, you left. So it would be a return home to the Democratic Labour Party, not a coming to the Democratic Labour Party. They're 2 very different things. So let us be very clear on that. And I would be clear on this because I have started my presidency on the fact that this party is a big tent. This party is open to all to join because that is the premise on which the Democratic Labour Party was built. When you could not find solace, when you could not find spaces in other places in Barbados, this party is where you came. And we will never close the door on any Barbadian who sees himself fit to serve, to want to serve. The Democratic Labour Party has a place for you at the table.
Days later, in stark contrast, DLP General Secretary Steve Blackett sought to distance the party from Mr. Thorne and his newly appointed senators.
Many Barbadians may wonder whether the views of Mr. Thorne and his 2 duly elected senators reflect the views of the Democratic Labour Party. For clarity, I must remind the country that Mr. Thorne currently is not a member of the Democratic Labour Party, so the views expressed in both the Senate and the House by he and his team are their own thoughts and opinions at this time.
He further noted then that Mr. Thorne had not applied for membership, nor had he provided even a verbal indication of any intention to become a member of the DLP. However, on Friday morning, Mr. Thorne made his intentions very clear as he officially submitted his application to the DLP. He spoke to me briefly at the DLP headquarters.
I'm here to exercise an act of humility, and that act is one of submitting myself to the rules of this party, that I cannot speak for the party, or I cannot presume to speak for the party unless I am a member of the party. And I have elected to make an application to the Democratic Labour Party as an ordinary member and to join with the party the office that I hold in Parliament.
Based on the Democratic Labour Party's constitution, you joining the party would have implications for the leadership.
Political leadership. The constitution of the Democratic Labour Party says that the leader of the opposition becomes the political leader. But there's the administrative leadership. As you know, don't let us fool ourselves. As you know, over the last few years, the party has not had a presence in Parliament, so that there has been the added burden on the president, the incumbent president, to exercise administrative and political leadership. Although that burden may be eased somewhat on him, he still maintains the position of leadership.
If accepted to the party, you will become the political leader of the Democratic Labour Party. What role do you see yourself playing in rebuilding this party?
Rebuilding begins with acknowledgement of truth. And the truth is, this party, like all parties in opposition, experience difficulties in terms of unity. And I see my role as assisting in re-establishing unity in this party.
His membership application was immediately sent to the General Secretary and then submitted to the Executive Council. A special meeting of the DLP Executive Council was convened on Saturday. The members met for over 2 hours at the party's headquarters and, in an unexpected turn of events, determined they were not quite ready to bring Mr. Thorne into the fold.
We've made a decision at this meeting to delay the admittance of Mr. Ralph Thorne into the Democratic Labour Party. And that is premised, of course, on the fact that we will have further consultations with him on his coming into the fellowship of this party. So that is where we're standing. By majority vote, the Executive Council of the party made that decision, that we will have further consultations with Mr. Thorne, and therefore the decision to admit or not admit him into the party has been deferred until then.
When we return, political analyst Peter Wickham weighs in. Mr. Wickham, thank you for joining us.
Pleasure.
Your thoughts on the DLP delaying Ralph Thorne's admittance into the party?
I think the delay for the DLP is as surprising as the decision of Ralph Thorne to leave. One would have thought that under the circumstances, the Democratic Labour Party has every good reason to admit him and admit him quickly. We've already talked about the substantial capital that he brings to the Democratic Labour Party, both financially, politically, and otherwise. Against that background, one would assume that it would be in their interest to move quickly in this direction. Delaying causes the perception that there is a problem. It causes the perception, it enhances the perception that there is a division or a fracture. And what we've clearly seen emerging is a group within the DLP that is anxious to have him on board, and a group within the DLP that is less excited about that prospect. And I think that against the background that Dr. Yearwood proclaimed at the beginning, that he was ready to welcome him with open arms and that the DLP was a large tent, and now we see this delaying tactic, it suggests that something is not 100% right. And my sense is that it sends a perception that there's a division within the Democratic Labour Party that needs to be worked on, and this is the challenge that we have.
What are some of the factors that you think are delaying his admittance to the party?
I think that we understand that the Democratic Labour Party's constitution essentially elevates Thorne to the position of political leader as soon as he is admitted. This is the logical outcome. Now, for some people, this is a good thing because they believe that it shifts the spotlight away from Dr. Yearwood. There is a perception that I'm familiar with that suggests that Dr. Yearwood has not been effective as leader, and the feeling is that a shifted political leadership will take that away. That's one side of it. The other side of it is a reality that the identification of a political leader, along with the reality of a president, which is like an administrative leader, essentially diminishes Dr. Yearwood's role. And the concern, certainly in persons who are supportive of him, is that that's something that you don't really want to do. So my sense is that there is some level of negotiation taking place to see how you can accommodate these two leaders within that framework in a way that does not diminish Dr. Yearwood significantly.
Do you think that they can coexist in leadership?
This is something which is not unfamiliar to the Democratic Labour Party because there was Clyde Maskell, there was David Thompson. Clyde Maskell was the president. David Thompson was the presumptive political leader because he sat in Parliament. And that went on for several years. They went through the 2003 general election. With that arrangement in place, Maskell did well. He was able to bring some more seats to the Democratic Labour Party. They went into Parliament with a larger force, and he became leader of the opposition. The leadership of the opposition is determined at a point in time when sufficient members in Parliament are able to make a decision on who they want to lead them, and then that's the political leader of the DLP. That's the way the DLP does business. So the point is that if an election came and the DLP returned to Parliament in sufficient numbers and they decided they wanted Dr. Yearwood to lead them, assuming that he won a seat, then they can do that at that point in time. If they want a government, they can determine who they want to lead them in terms of a government. But to make those kinds of decisions now creates, some challenges. And I think that what will happen basically is that those decisions will be made at a later date. The other point that I think will really be contentious is the whole question of candidate selection. And that's a great area because the way the Democratic Labour Party's constitution is drafted, there's a presumption that the president, political leader, will both be in Parliament and they will be the same person. It gives that person the right to choose an executive or to accompany persons into the executive, general council. These are the bodies that choose candidates. Now, you're going to have a situation where the political leader is not part of that apparatus at this point in time. Essentially, it means that the president and general secretary have a greater role in selecting candidates that the political leader will lead politically. That is probably one of the few issues that I think is something that needs to be negotiated because for the moment, Ralph Thorne has no capacity to choose candidates in the way that he would want to, even though he politically leads the DLP in Parliament. Apart from that, I struggle to understand what are the other negotiating points because you're dealing with a situation where Mr. Thorne is coming to this conversation with everything and saying to the Democratic Labour Party, I have resources politically, I have access to financial resources from a subvention, I'm giving this to the Democratic Labour Party. Either you want it or you don't want it. If the DLP does not want to make him a member, then they lose the subvention. But the decisions that he made in terms of the senators and so on, the positions that he takes in Parliament will continue to stand. And it appears extremely illogical for the DLP to say, look, we are taking this gift, which ultimately will be a subvention, and we are going to turn our back on it, as opposed to saying, let's work with him. So that's really a situation where he holds all the cards.
When we return, Ralph Thorne, welcome home. Stay with us.
I welcome Ralph Thorne into the Democratic Labour Party.
That was the consensus at the DLP meeting in St. Michael Northwest on Sunday evening. A full house turned out for the first meeting since 2 DLP members were appointed to the Senate. And with open arms, they greeted Mr. Thorne.
You have welcomed me home. You have welcomed me home. Back home. With wounds on my body, like a wounded child. The fatted calf for the prodigal son. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back into my life. It's been a long time, but I'm going to make this time a good time. Thank you very much.
Mr. Thorne spoke to the media briefly. While he could not disclose details on his meeting with the executive, he did share that he was heartened by the response of the members.
You know, they say that real leadership comes from the bottom. And I have encountered real leadership here tonight in terms of the rank and file of this party. So getting a welcome like this from the rank and file is more important to me from anything that happens at executive level. But I would hope that they will do things that they ought to do. And I wouldn't like to say any more than that because I don't want to anticipate the processes.
When questioned further on the meeting, he would only say,
we didn't quarrel. We did not quarrel. We did not quarrel.
As it relates to those processes, they were only completed by the following evening. According to the DLP's Constitution, Parliamentary Group Section 50H, the political leader is the person who commands the support of the majority of members of the parliamentary group in the House of Assembly. Mr. Thorne had become that person. He, along with Mr. Blackett and DLP President and Party Leader Dr. Ronnie Yearwood, in a united front, held a press conference. Mr. Blackett referenced the process as he embraced the new political leader.
Over the last few days, we were privileged to sit down as responsible members of this party and hammer out an arrangement that I think would be pleasing to most Barbadians.
In his first address as political leader, Mr. Thorne expressed his gratitude.
I want to say thanks for welcoming me and admitting me back into membership of this great party. And you can be assured that I will give faithfully of all of my energies in the Parliament of Barbados. Thank you very much.
Dr. Yearwood officially welcomed Mr. Thorne and spoke about his silence on the matter up until then.
As President, I have not commented on Mr. Thorne's application, as I have never discussed or negotiated on any party issue in the press or in the public. I believe that internal party matters should be discussed and ventilated internally. One must keep a level head, otherwise these matters may descend into complete chaos. Thankfully, along with the executive and Mr. Thorne, we did not allow all of the public utterances and misinformation to distract us from our duty to discuss and put a way forward for this party and for the people of this country. Regrettably, a lot of unnecessary noise and activity almost derailed what should have been a relatively simple process. Thankfully, to use the old age adage, all's well that ends well. Ralph and I, through our collaborative efforts, will continue to move this party forward. We have already agreed that our parliamentary caucus will consist of Mr. Thorne as leader of the opposition and political leader, myself as president and leader of the party, the senators, as well as the shadow cabinet. Let there be no doubt this party is moving in the right direction.
When questioned on his role as party leader now that Mr. Thorne is political leader, Dr. Yearwood explained.
The party leader is the president of the party, who leads the party and governs the arms of the party. That is the executive council, the general council, and work along with the general secretary.
With Mr. Thorne at the helm of the DLP, the party stands to benefit to the tune of $150,000 in subvention from Parliament, which is half of the $300,000 to be dispensed to the political parties as stipulated in the Parliament Act. The following afternoon, Mr. Thorne walked up the steps of Parliament, not just as leader of the opposition, but with a party behind him. I'm Krystal Hoyte. Thank you for joining me.